Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Gretchen and today I am here with another reading recap. It's been several weeks since I have touched base to talk about the books that I have finished, and I just realized that I have finished several and there are a lot of books to talk about, so I figured I would take some time today to film this recap while the books are still pretty fresh in my mind. And then a little later I will talk about the current reads that I have actively going. So there are a lot of books that I want to talk about, so we'll just go ahead and jump right in. And the first book that I want to talk about is the one that I finished most recently. I actually just sat down and read this one from cover to cover this morning. Also, this is a book that was one of my more anticipated reads of the year. This is a sequel to a book that I read previously called Sandwich and really enjoyed, and the book I finished is Wreck by Katherine Newman. So if you are fans or have read Sandwich and enjoyed that, I really think you're going to enjoy Wreck as well. It follows the same family that we met in Sandwich. Obviously, some time has passed, but we meet Rocky, who is the mother of the family, and she is going through a couple things in her life. Now, her and her husband, Nick, they have a really good relationship with each other. They also have 2 children. Willa has recently come back to the house after college, and they also have a son named Jamie who is living in New York City. He has this successful career. And then lastly, they have her father has recently moved in with them after losing his wife. So he's newly widowed, and the family is kind of adjusting to him now living with them. And there's 2 plot lines going through this story. The first one is related to the title. At the very beginning of the book, we learn that there has been a local accident involving a train. There was a young kid, not a young kid, but Jamie's age, so a young man, I should say. He was hit by a train in his vehicle and he was killed. Now, there is speculation going back and forth as to whether this was something that he did intentionally or if the issue was with neglect, or the accident was caused by the train operator, or if there was maybe some type of safety concern with the train company that they maybe had overlooked. So we have a bit of that narrative. So she's trying to process, having a son around the same age, processing how that mother must feel that is going through this, and she's relating that to her life and her family. And then the other thing we have going on is Sandwich really followed Rocky through her change of life, or with menopause, and there is an additional health concern that she starts talking about very early on in this book. So we're following her through the identification and then her going through all of the testing and the doctor visits and all of those things while still trying to maintain some type of normal sense of life and still going about the daily activities, keeping the family together and working and all of those other things. So this type of book is really good for people that enjoy reading about real, relatable people that are going through the same types of issues and concerns that a lot of us go through. I found this book to be extremely relatable, as not necessarily directly to what Rocky was specifically going through, but the family dynamic and the way that they're interacting with each other. And I love reading books like this because it's so refreshing to know know that there are other people in the world that are going through very similar things. Now, the circumstances may be different or the scenarios might be different, but we're all faced with challenges. We're all faced with these roadblocks in life, and it is sometimes very comforting to know that you are not alone and that what you're feeling and the things that you are going through are normal and they're part of the human experience. And I also love how clever Katherine Newman is with her writing. I love the characters. I love their relationship dynamics. I love their humor. I just love how cozy they seem. They seem like a group of people that I would absolutely love to be neighbors with and just go over and spend some time with and just enjoy them, because they all seem like genuinely good human beings and ones that I would love to have conversations with. And I think that Katherine Newman is just so good about writing those kinds of experiences. And yeah, this is obviously the second one in the series. I really hope that we meet Rocky again at some other phase in her life, because I do really enjoy these characters so much. And yeah, if you read Sandwich, absolutely give this one a go. And if you haven't read Sandwich, pick it up, because I think that you women more so than men probably, because Sandwich does follow Rocky throughout menopause and the kids going off to college and all of those things that women around that age deal with. So it's definitely probably more a female centric type of read, but yeah, I think that if you did enjoy Sandwich, go ahead and pick up Wreck. I think you're going to enjoy it too. The next book that I finished was Bonjour Tristesse by Françoise Sagan, and this was translated from the French by Heather Lloyd. This was a book that I had on my summer TBR, and although it is a very short book, I personally decided to take my time with it. I dipped in and out of it throughout the summer, but this is also a book that had a very fast pace to it. So I think that if you really wanted to, you could sit down and read this book in one go as well. So this book follows our main character. Her name is Cecile, and Cecile is kind of living the life. She is a young woman. She is vacationing in the French Riviera. Her and her father are living in this beautiful villa. Her father is widowed. He's, I think, about 45 years old, and he's living it up too. He's got his mistress, who is around the same age as Cecile, and then Cecile has a boyfriend, and their days are just filled with sitting by the pool, drinking, smoking, just having the best time. Well, then we have one of her father's friends, it was actually a friend of Cecile's mother as well, come into the picture, and her name is Anne. Anne is around the same age as her father. She is very attractive and very sophisticated, and Cecile admires her very much. But things kind of take a turn when Anne and her father start to develop this relationship, and then we find out that they are going to get married, and this totally throws Cecile for a loop, and she decides that this is not something that she wants to happen. It's going to uproot the way that she is currently living her life, and she wants to put a stop to it. So she comes up with a plan, and then the rest of the book is her executing that plan and getting everything together. And then, of course, we learn about the consequences of her actions and how everything unfolds after this plan goes into place. And I thought that this was a really solid book. I really enjoyed the writing. Like I said, it read very quickly. It almost had a bit of a thriller quality to it as well. And yeah, I enjoyed my time with this. I think that this is a great summer read. I know that we're not in that season anymore, but if you're wanting to think about maybe a summer read for next year, I think that this would be a great one to put on your list. The next book that I finished is one that has been on my TBR for ages, and it is a classic that I have been meaning to get to for years. So I was so happy to finally be able to find the time to get to this one, and that book is Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy. Now, this is actually the second book that I have finished by Thomas Hardy. I read The Mayor of Casterbridge last year and I enjoyed that one. And after reading Tess of the D'Urbervilles, I think that I can say that I'm a fan of Thomas Hardy. I know that he is not going to be the author for everyone because his stories are filled with nothing but sadness and tragedy, but I love a good miserable read, and if you are the same way, this book is definitely going to tick those boxes for you. This book follows our main character, Tess, and I won't go into all of the details of the plot, but it is this kind of coming of age story in a sense that follows this woman through all of these different tragedies that happen throughout her life, and most of them are coming because of the double standards that are held between men and women, especially in the time that this book was written. What was good for men to do was something that women should be ashamed of, and the things that happened to her in her life were so awful, but most of them were not even at her own hand. They were caused by men in her life, and those things that happened to her obviously just kept leading to more misery and more grief for her. How much can one person truly go through in their life and still come out as a survivor? And I really liked this book. I struggle to say that I enjoyed it in the sense, because that probably sounds a little sadistic if I say I enjoyed a story like this, but I liked the character development. I really liked the plot. I also loved how it also, even though this was written by a man, it had feminist undertones to it, because I think that the way that he portrayed Tess was very sympathetic, and it felt like he, as an author, maybe had more loving feelings toward women, or had more progressive feelings toward women and their place in the world. And I felt like I could even tell that in the way that he wrote some of his male characters. And yeah, I really did enjoy this book. Like I said, it's not going to be for everybody, especially if you're looking for something happy and uplifting. If you are looking for that, please do not pick this up. Let this be your warning. One last thing I will say about why I enjoyed this book and why I think I really like Hardy's writing in general is that I find his writing to be very accessible for a classic. I think that sometimes people shy away from wanting to pick up a classic because they're concerned that the language is going to be dull or stuffy or boring or difficult to understand, but I think that Hardy is very readable. I do think that it's easier to understand than a lot of classics that were written around the same time. I do just find his books to be more accessible, and I think that the plots are also very interesting and detailed, and just entertaining, and it just makes these books a lot more readable than some classics that I have tried to tackle in the past. So that's another point for Hardy in my book. I have finished The Mayor of Casterbridge, I have finished Test of the D'Urbervilles, and I definitely think I read one last year, this one this year, so I will definitely pick up a Hardy next year as well. So I'm curious to see if any of you have any suggestions on what my next book should be from Thomas Hardy. The next book that I finished was called The Hounding by Xenobe Purvis. And before I get into the book, can we just take a moment to talk about how beautiful this cover is? I think that this is probably my favorite cover of the year. I think it is stunning. But I also really enjoyed the book behind the cover as well. Now, this is a debut novel, and it's described as being a mix of The Crucible and The Virgin Suicides. Now, I have never read The Virgin Suicides, but I have read The Crucible, and I definitely get those vibes from this. So this is a book that follows a group of 5 women in this little tiny English village within the 18th century, and there is a man within the village that is spreading a rumor or convinced that these girls, these 5 girls, are able to turn themselves into dogs. And the whole story revolves around this event or this transformation that he claims that he witnessed and how the town is reacting to it. This book is very moody and it's very atmospheric, and it has that spooky kind of witchy vibe. So it was an absolute perfect read for the fall. I also loved how it focused kind of on that mob mentality and how rumors spread, and as accusations fly, even though something might be completely unbelievable to a person, the more other people talk about it and the more people get on board with something, how easily other people's minds can be swayed into believing something that they never thought was possible. And the other thing about this book that was really great, I thought, is how feminist it was, especially in the sense that there was a man that was accusing these women, and what it really all boiled down to was that these women didn't act in a way that the man thought was appropriate. So here we have this whole narrative and this whole plot that is stemming from a man who basically got his feelings hurt by a woman not doing something that he expected her to do, and how quickly something like that can snowball and turn into something tragic and catastrophic. And I really did enjoy this story so much. I loved the vibe of it. I loved the language in it. I listened to this on audio as well as reading the physical, and I really loved the narrator as well. Her voice really transported me, and yeah, I really liked this all around. There's still some time left in fall. I know we're past spooky season, but I still think that this would be a great book to finish out the year with. And I loved the supernatural elements to it. I loved, that we had a little bit of that speculative fiction to it, which I'm a fan of. So yeah, I think it was well written. I was really surprised that this was a debut, and I just think it was a weird book too. I love a good weird book, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what this author comes out with next, because I really enjoyed my time spent with this one. The next book that I finished was In a Distant Valley by Shannon Bowring. So I won't say too much about this book, except that this is the third and I believe final installment in the Dalton series. There was a book called The Road to Dalton, and the second one I think was called Where the Forest Meets the River, if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, this book follows a group of people that are living in this small, tiny little town in Maine. It is set, this one I think is set in the mid-90s, and it's following this large cast of characters. We have followed these characters throughout the duration of this book series, and I really loved this series so much. This is another example of a book where we're talking about normal people with normal issues and problems and worries and fears, and I just loved these characters so much. I was sad to see that this series was ending, but I did hear a rumor that the author is starting another series, so I'm really glad to see that she is branching out, and I enjoyed my time with this so much. So obviously this one is tough to talk about because it's the last book in a series, and I worry that if I talk too much about the plot, I'm going to give some things away. But if you have read any of the other books and enjoyed them, this is going to be a great book to finish the series off. And if you haven't picked up any of them and you're a fan of Elizabeth Strout's writing, I think that this would be a series that you could enjoy as well. So the last book I finished that I want to talk about is a book called The Girls by John Bowen. And this is one of those McNally editions. I think I've talked about McNally editions on my channel before and how much I love them. McNally Editions is a press that takes books that have been out of publication for a while and tries to breathe new life into them. And every single McNally edition book that I have picked up, I have absolutely loved. They do such a good job of curating which ones to pull out of the vault, and this one has been my favorite to date, and I loved this book so much. So this book follows our two main characters. We have Jan and we have Sue, and they are partners in both business and they are also a couple. They run and own this little artisan specialty shop within their little village that they live in the Cotswolds, and they are seemingly happy. The rest of the town looks at them with kind of envy because they do live such a simple life and they seem very happy, and they are, but Sue decides one day that she wants to travel to Europe a bit. She is in her 20s and she wants to experience a little bit of life. Jan is a little bit older. She's in her 30s. So Jan decides that Sue can absolutely go to Europe and have her little holiday, but Jan is left behind, and the time that Sue goes to Europe is also the time where they typically go on this annual trip to this craft fair in England. So they decide that Jan is going to go by herself and she's going to go there to sell her stuff. And while Jan is there, she also meets this man named Alan. Alan is a gay man, and he has a partner, but they also strike up a conversation and they have this little bit of a connection, and Jan and Alan end up sleeping together. And once Jan returns back home and Sue returns home, they realize that Jan is pregnant, and they decide together that they are going to have the baby and raise it in their home and just continue on life as normal. And then one day Alan shows up, and Alan puts two and two together and he realizes that the little kid that he is looking at may be his, and he maybe wants to be a part of that child's life. life, and he seems like he's a very lonely person and he's looking for some connection or maybe some friendship, but the girls see it as a threat, and then the next thing you know, something very bad happens and the story takes over from there. And I just loved this book so much. It was so funny, it was dark, it was so sharp and precise with its writing. I just loved it. It was quirky, these characters were so charming, and I loved the story so much. And to see the interactions between the two of them, Jan and Sue, it was just delightful, and how they protected each other. And then there was this other little lady that lived within the village that was on to what was happening, and it was just so funny how they all kind of got tied up into this. And yeah, it was such a delight. I was not expecting it at all. Anytime I see one of these McNally editions, I pick it up, and I don't know why, but I just grabbed it off the shelf one day. I didn't even really read too much of the description. I just got into it, and I will say that the first chapter, which is only about, I mean, in total, the first chapter is probably equivalent to 1 page, and it was enough to just suck me in, and I ended up just flying through this book. I thought it was so good, and it does just make me so happy that this book, which was written, I think, in the 80s, yeah, it was originally written in 1986, that a book that would have seemingly just been lost, and you know, I would have never stumbled upon this book if it hadn't been for McNally Editions re-releasing a lot of these. So they are definitely hidden gems, and I totally encourage you to pick them up if you see them, especially this one. If you like dark humor, if you like books that are offbeat and a little quirky, this is going to be a book right up your alley. And yeah, I absolutely loved it. And if any of you out there have read this, please let me know. This is just one of those books that you finish and you feel like you just want to share it with everybody or get other people to read it because you want to have somebody to talk to about it. And I adored it, and I cannot wait now to pick up my next McNally edition, because like I said, every time I pick up one, I end up really enjoying it, and this was no exception. So there were 3 other books that I did finish that I'm not going to talk about on today's video for specific reasons. The first one is Mona's Eyes. Oh, sorry, there was a glare. I don't think that I'm going to talk about this one today because I'm contemplating doing a standalone review for this one. This book actually just won, or was announced that it is the Barnes & Noble book of the year. So I think that there's going to be a lot of people that are interested in this book. So I'll do a standalone so that it doesn't get buried in a video, and the video or review is a little more accessible to people. So that one I finished. I just actually finished that yesterday. So the other 2 books that I finished, I'm not quite sure how I want to handle them, because I think I mentioned briefly on the last video that I posted that they recently put out the long list for this year's Aspen Words Literary Prize. And this is a prize that I followed last year, and I had so much fun with it. I really thoroughly enjoyed the reads that I did from that book prize. Now they have a 15 book long list, and last year I read all of them but one, and I think if I'm remembering correctly, Wandering Stars by Tommy Orange won last year. But I read so many great books off of that long list last year that I want to do the same this year, and I figured I would like to incorporate that into some of my content. Now, I haven't done a video about what those books are on the long list, but I have already started to read through the long list. Some of the books I had already read, for example, Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaughey, The True Story of Raja the Gullible and His Mother, Happy Land is a book that I read, and Endling is also on that long list. So for any fans of Endling that thought that it got robbed by not making it onto the short list for the Booker, it's got a chance with the Aspen Awards Literary Prize, which is very exciting to me. So the two books that I finished recently from that prize were The True Story of Raja the Gullible and His Mother, which, by the way, just won the National Book Award for fiction. And then the second one that I just finished the other day was Happy Land. And bear with me for 1 second, I forget the author. Happy Land by Dolan Perkins Valdez. Both of those books I really enjoyed, so I want to talk about those, but I'm not sure if I want to do standalone reviews for each of the books from that prize, or maybe I'll just read a handful of books and kind of lump them together in a couple videos. So there will be more to come with the Aspen Words Literary Prize content, but I'm just still trying to figure out exactly how I want to handle that. But in the meantime, if you are interested in the prize or following it, I will put the link to their website down below so you can see a whole list of what the long list looks like. Like I said, I had so much fun with this prize last year. It was actually introduced to me by one of my viewers. Her name is Valerie. She doesn't have a BookTube account or a YouTube account, but she is very active on Instagram, and if you don't follow her, I highly suggest you do if you are looking for good bookish content on Instagram. Here is a screenshot of her Instagram, but I will also post it in the comments below, and please go follow her. She is always, she just has really great taste in books. She reads a lot of indie presses. She doesn't typically read within the mainstream, but she's always finding these hidden gems and turning me onto them, and I have had so many great book recommendations from her, so highly recommend you visiting her on Instagram and giving her a follow. And yeah, like I said, more to come with the Aspen Words Literary Prize. I will figure out exactly what I want to do with it, hopefully in the weeks to come. But if you are interested in following or reading along with some of the books that I plan on reading, I think the next one that I'm going to read is So Far Gone by Jess Walter. That is another one that I have out from the library, and I think that is going to be my next read from it. More to come with that. Also, I do want to talk really quickly about my current reads. I have 3 active reads at the moment. I am still working my way through The Heart is a Lonely Hunter by Carson McCullers. I am now about 121 pages into it. This is one that I'm taking my time with. I do hope to get it done by the end of the year though. And then the other 2 books are ones that I talked about on my big books video. I did a video a few weeks ago talking about some of the big books that I was really looking forward forward to getting to at some point in time, and I decided to pick up 2 of them, and I am actively working my way through them. The first one is David Copperfield by Charles Dickens, and I am on page 168 of this. I am enjoying it so far. As with any Dickens, I'm taking my time with it. It's a chunker and it's entertaining. I am enjoying it so far, and I know I talked a little bit earlier about really enjoying Hardy because I like miserable books. Well, this is turning out to be a miserable book too, so it's right up my alley, and hopefully I can get this done by the end of the year. And then the other book that I picked up from that big books list is Lonesome Dove. I am enjoying it so much. I cannot believe I've slept on it for as long as I have. Now, I've barely made a dent into it. I'm only on page 134, but I am already in love with these characters, and I am ready to go to Montana with them. I am so excited to get further into this book, and it's another one that I'm really hoping to get finished by the end of the year. I am taking it slowly. I'm doing about a chapter, sometimes 2 chapters in a day, so I'm not flying through it, but who knows, that might change. It's one of those books where I'm kind of forcing myself to put it down so I don't fly through it, but now that the holidays are coming and I'll have a little bit of time off from work, I might just sit down and start taking huge chunks out of it because it's such a great story, and yeah, I can't believe I've slept on it for this long. So yeah, those are the books that I'm actively reading, the ones that I have read. As far as plans for what I'm going to be reading within the next month or so, I will be trying to get as much of the Aspen Words long list done. The nice thing about that prize though is that I don't think they announce the short list until March, maybe. I could be wrong about that, but we have a while before they announce the short list, and then I don't think the winner is announced until April, so we've got plenty of time to read those books. So I'm trying to get some of those done, and then also I'm sure there will be some other books that I want to get to. One other random book that I'm really dying to get to is I want to continue into the On the Calculation of Volume series. I have read the first one. I need to read the second one. I do have a copy, and they just released the third one, so I really am itching to get to that one because I'm starting to hear buzz about that third one. So yeah, maybe that's another one that I can get to before the end of the year, but we shall see. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have read any of these books, please leave a comment with your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching, and until we read again, bye!